you'll go broke either way. So if you underprice the job, you're going to go broke.
Yeah.
Or you can miss the job and still go broke, but at least you're happy because you're not under stress because you've underquoted a job.
My dream is to improve the residential building industry for all involved. Throughout this podcast, we're going to be chatting to all types of industry experts to make sure that builders, tradies and clients all have a fantastic experience. G'day everyone and welcome back to another episode of Level Up. We're back in the shed today. It's a bit of a hot afternoon. I've been in trouble by the missus because I've got a haircut today and I'm starting my mullet. So it didn't go down real well. But anyway, we've got a pretty exciting guest today. We've got Christian here from Bluebird Design and Build. I actually don't know Christian that much. Had a little bit of communication via social media. But Christian actually reached out after we did a video on our social media about a project we did where we ended up going sort of $82,000 over and didn't make much money out of the project. So, and it resonated because there's a lot of builders out there, especially in the current market, that are losing money on every job. So it was good. Reached out, we've had a bit of a chat, and glad you're here, mate.
Thanks for having me. But that's basically why I reached out, that I could relate to it 100%. We've just completed a job in the same sort of market, and we're of the same opinion and found out that obviously we lost a fair bit of coin, and it was just refreshing to have a builder actually say something about
Put it out there.
Yeah. So.
But, well, mate, I'm an open book. Like, that's the whole mission to change the industry. We can only do it if people are honest and putting real stories out there. So thanks for coming in today and really looking forward to our chat. We've just been having a little bit of a chat before we got into this, and we've got some really cool stuff to run over and talk through. But to get us started, mate, I guess, can you tell us a little bit about, your background, like where you finished school and sort of how you got into the industry, I guess?
Yep. So I finished up year 12 and then went to uni after that and did electronic engineering. Didn't like it within 6 weeks and was out of there. Just I couldn't do it. So
well, at least you found out quickly.
Yeah. Mum and Dad weren't too pumped, but being straight away after that, Mum's like, "Oh, you can't just not do anything." So I got a cadetship with a structural engineering firm doing drafting, and then worked with them on major high rises around Brisbane and big commercial projects.
So I guess just to clarify, Christian's a design part of the business, and he has another business partner that's a builder.
Yep. So there's two of us. So I've got my foot in both camps in terms of design, and then costing, and then he looks after construction on site. But it's basically given me a great education in terms of learning both sides, I guess.
Awesome. So did you so you've done engineering drafting, so you got your head around all that side of the job, and then you've worked your way up into design, and you've also done a lot of the contract administration, pricing, proposals and building. So
all the stuff that builders hate. So it's all the office stuff.
All the stuff we don't get taught.
Yeah, well, that's it. I'm pretty good with computers and software and stuff like that. So that was where I sort of was really an asset, and that's why we combined. So Jeremy he was a carpenter and then went into building. And then obviously I had my cadetship and did that for a long time. And then I worked for hydraulic companies, and then architectural firms and building design companies. So I did structural, hydraulic and building design. So
some of the skills you would have picked up from that type of work would definitely be sort of helping you out with residential.
Yeah, so obviously residential, I got drawn to that because I was drafting people's houses on the side. So you'd have friends and they go, "Oh, can you design my house for me?" A couple of cartons of beer here and there, and then I just started loving it. And then I went out on my own and started an engineering and drafting company. And then Jeremy got his builder's license, and we're sort of going back and forth where I'd give him some clients, and then his clients would be like, "Oh, I need design," and then we're just like, "Well, it's a no-brainer to manage the whole process."
So you're still, from what I know, you're still working your way through your design. I guess what is it with design? Is like a degree or?
So I've got what they call like an RPL sort of thing with all the doing it for 17 years. So I don't have to go do the initial study, but I can go register with the Building Designers Association.
Awesome.
Whereas most most of them have to do 4 years of study and then register, or they do
Yeah.
architecture degree.
So you, yeah, well, you definitely jumped in the deep end starting a building business, but you also take on, like, you also build jobs that other designers and architects
Correct.
have come to you with.
Yeah, so originally we were just doing design a little bit,
Yeah.
and we were too scared to say that we were designing because we wanted work from building designers and architects to come to us so we could just do
Yeah.
construction. But since then we've sort of flipped it, that we're trying to design more and pitch that the last 2 years.
It's very interesting. Like, I think the thing with our industry and especially building companies, like it's so varied, the type, style, setup of businesses. Like, so, like with your background, and then obviously Bluebird Design Build.
Yeah.
And yeah, look, if you want to check the guys out, check their Instagram page because they do some really awesome projects.
Yep. Yeah, we've had some pretty good projects over time, and great clients as well. Like, yeah, we've had a pretty good run with clients.
Yeah, that's awesome. But so when we were talking before, you mentioned that you've been in business for around, Bluebird has been around for around 9 years.
Yeah, just come up to 9 years, I think, in this year. So
yeah, and so has it been 9 years of success, or what? Tell us a little bit of the story.
It's well, first off, we started doing little projects. Our overheads were very low. We were operating from underneath my house, and like most, I think, companies do. And no, we're upstairs in my house, actually. There was a spare room, so we're in there, and then we moved under the house and we sort of built that out. And then just two blokes going at it, really, and just trying to make a dollar.
Yeah.
We did a few insurance jobs here and there, and then we moved to bigger jobs and just slowly built up. I think confidence was a big one as well. Yeah. We're not too crazy, like in terms of like showy or anything like that. So we wanted to just learn the ropes before we moved on. So it was a gradual success, but that first 5-6 years was hard slog.
When you say hard slog, like, because as builders, and I think like one of the big things behind this podcast is, like, I want all builders and tradies to run great businesses, but I also want clients to get a good experience. And I think builders, I guess, I don't know, I don't want to say we dropped the ball, but at the end of the day, like, we're taught to build.
Yeah.
So most builders are fantastic at their trade. They're fantastic builders. They build a great product, but it's all the stuff. It's the other hats we got to wear. Like, it's the administration, the accounting, the proposals, the takeoff scopes of works, pricing, managing teams, creating teams. Like, there's so much goes on. And
it's actually pretty scary that someone can get their builder's license.
Yeah, like, and deal with such massive. Yeah. Like you can get your builder's ticket, and within, and this is what happened to me. Like within 12 months or 18 months of getting my builder's license, we went to like $5-6 million turnover.
Yeah, that's pretty psycho.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
like
it's quite dangerous.
It's very dangerous, and especially, I actually think it's worse these days, like especially with the influence of social media, because no one shows the hard times. Like every builder is showing the nice flashy finished photos, and
they don't realise that job was an absolute nightmare, or
like
they've lost heaps of money on it, or anything like that.
Yeah, the client doesn't know the behind the scenes. Other builders just see the pretty photo and go, "Holy shit! Like, how are they killing it?
Yeah, he's killing it. What like are they doing? Yeah, and that guy's got like 6 projects on. Yeah. But meanwhile, he's leveraged to the eyeballs. And and he needs those 6 projects to survive because he's going payment to payment.
Yeah, well, and one thing I think I give myself permission to be able to talk the way I do because I've been there. Like mate, leading up to like we had years and years in business where on face value we were killing it. We were winning awards. I was getting asked to speak at industry events. We were bloody like suppliers were sending us on overseas holidays. Like it was insane. But,
love a good golf day.
Yeah, like all sorts of stuff. But behind the scenes, mate, I was a mess. I was getting depressed. I was getting anxiety. And we eventually got to a point where the banks bloody knocked on the door, wanted to take things, and it's a bad position to be in because you've like my dream, and I know a lot of builders and tradies, like most guys in our industry have wanted to be in our industry from a very young age, and to get into business and then have it fall over is pretty heartbreaking.
Oh, it's pretty bad. Like I've got into building because I love building homes, I guess, and
Yeah.
creating a house where the client's loving it. Like we still get photos from clients 2 years on showing them
Yeah.
using the house with the kids, and like that's the sort of stuff why we started.
Yeah. So what in that first 6 years, like can you tell us what some of the struggles were, like what the main ones were?
Same thing. We got caught up in where we sign a project that as you move up, so you'd start with like a $300,000 project. You sign it and you're like, oh, this is awesome. And then you get a job sent to you, and like we got one sent to us that was in Tenerife, and we quoted it. It was like 1.2. I think we were 2 years in. And looking back, if we got that, we would have gone under straight away.
Yeah.
But back then we weren't tracking any of our invoices, weren't tracking our costings. We didn't have a clue what our overheads were.
Yeah.
We didn't know, like we were paying ourselves a ridiculous wage, and then because we had payments coming in, we're like, oh, this is great, but you get to a point where you're like, you've got to pay your end of month bills, and then you're like, oh shit,
Yeah.
I've got $100 in the bank,
Yeah.
and I've got to make this last 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
a lot of guys don't talk about that. So
Oh, none of them do, mate. And they're all making, and I've done it. Like you're talking to your subbies and suppliers, and you're making excuses, and
Yeah.
you're blaming their clients that a client's payment hasn't come, and all this sort of thing. But in reality, it's because you haven't priced the job correctly.
100%. So we weren't pricing. We were using like an Excel sheet back in the day. It was
Yeah.
like, I think our quotes were like 3 pages long
Yeah.
for a massive house, and we were just looking back, it's like really disgusting and pretty scary. But we survived in terms of we pulled in a bit of money of our own savings to get by and through the hard yards in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then I think we sort of educated ourselves. Like we got a mentor for a bit that sort of pulled us out and said, oh, are you tracking this? Are you doing that?
Yeah.
And basic business things that we weren't doing in
Yeah.
terms of working on the business, not in the business. So we were focusing on the day-to-day and
Yeah.
trying to get clients in where we weren't focusing on what's this costing us, how are we getting to clients for
Which
the next
is
one.
like I still can't figure out how to explain it, but I do think a builder's business is completely different to any other business. I sort of look at it like you actually have two businesses.
Yeah.
Like you have the on-site one, which is just flat out trying to keep the schedules, get trades in, get materials in, get the job done so you can get to a progress draw. But then the second business is the administration side, which, like myself and a lot of builders, for a long time, you just let it go.
There's more paperwork than building.
Yeah.
There's
And
more
well,
client management
Yeah.
and admin than there is actually on-site work.
yeah, we've done a little bit of homework through I Live Like Build business and with some mind mapping and things. And when you do those mind mapping exercises, when you put it on paper, it's actually only about 20 to 30% of the business is on site.
Yeah.
The other 70 or 80 is administration.
Most of my job is managing clients. So
Yeah.
calling them back, letting them know where we're at.
Yeah.
Obviously, that was the beginning. But now we've moved forward with software. Like software's come a long way.
So what if you don't mind me asking, what sort of software are you using?
We're using Builder Trend at the moment.
Yeah.
We've only just signed on. We were using Excel for a while. Build Exact and for costings.
Builder Trend seems to be a pretty popular one with builders. Seems to do a lot of stuff.
There's no one like. There's a few out there. There's a lot of multiple different programs that we use because we can't do everything at once in terms of one software. Like
Yeah.
Xero, obviously, most people use Xero for accounting, but it's
Yeah.
also great for tracking costings on your project. But so is Builder Trend.
Yeah.
And Builder Trend's pretty good for client portals. Giving them, I think that's sort of a game changer for us in terms of.
It's a big part of running a successful building business is your communication with your client.
That's all it is. It's communication with everybody.
Yeah.
So with subbies, suppliers, everyone just said how it is instead of
Yeah.
like, oh, if they told you a date, knowing that they're not going to be able to deliver on that date, why not just say the truth? So then
Mate.
we can tell the client.
Don't get me started. Like that's all I ask.
Yeah.
Like if I schedule you in or book you or talk to you on the phone, if you can't be on site the date I want you, just tell me.
Yeah.
Don't leave me hanging and
Strip
then
the
not show
Band-Aid
up on the
off.
day.
Yeah.
And then we're having to reschedule things because we're pretty like my supervisor's incredible. And my wife in the office, we're always like, we're touching base with people generally 6-8 weeks out, even sort of letting them know how we're tracking, and then sort of for a while it's every 2 weeks, and as we get closer it's every week, and then and they'll keep telling you they're on track until like 2 days before, and then they're like, oh shit's hit the fan, we're going to be at this other job, we can't get to yours till next week. Like,
we just had one where they're like, yeah, no, we're all good. And then the day of delivery, it was the afternoon. We're like, no one's answering their phone. We're like, where are you? And they're like, oh, we're not going to be able to get there we're not going to be able to get the product to you for another 4 weeks. And you're like, well,
you just know, don't you?
Yeah, we could have moved the chippies to another site.
Yeah.
But
you know in your guts, as soon as you make that call and no one's answering or no one's responding, you just know in your guts that it's
that anxiety kicks in.
You're
You're just like, oh no,
yeah,
they're not ready.
But I can't really complain. Like, we do have a really good team at the moment, and like you would know, like in this current environment, like it does feel that, like I honestly feel like we're in a brilliant position in our business. We've got so many systems and processes. Everything is running so well, and yet with the current situation with availability and like people getting COVID and they're having half their employees and that sort of thing, it honestly feels like if we weren't having to constantly every day reschedule, we could actually have some free time. But every day, like we got one at the moment, like half the form workers teams got COVID, half the air conditioning teams got COVID, and it's like it's life. We got to deal with it, but it's just a battle, isn't it?
Well, yeah, you like it. What are we? February now. Like that rain that hit at the end of the year, like that was 3 weeks of rain.
Yeah,
and we had 2 slab pours that just kept getting pushed back. So the poor concreter's sitting there, and he's not earning anything either. Yeah. And he's wanting to get on site, and then all the jobs get delayed, but then telling the client, and then it puts like a delay on every other project. And everyone's just battling to get things done. And I feel like everyone in construction is trying to bend over backwards to help people.
Yeah, it is like communication is definitely the key, but I do feel like we're pretty good. Like most of our subbies are good, but I do feel like the industry could improve immensely if just all subbies communicated more. Like don't be afraid to make the call.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to be late, or you've had your team's not well, or you're held up on another job, whatever, like just pick up the phone and be honest.
Most people are. I think it's just every now and then you've got a new subby, or it's mainly suppliers at the moment, but then suppliers aren't being told by their suppliers what's happening.
Yeah, and shipping, transport.
Yeah.
Like there's so much affecting everything. But mate, we were talking about it a little bit before, and you were talking about like you weren't tracking things in your business. Building businesses, trades businesses, like we have so much data, and yet most people do nothing with it.
So yeah, I'm a big fan of data. Like I love it. So we every project we'll go through it at the end of it and calculate everything. So like we know, like we've got all categories for the project, and how much time the chippies are spending on the framing, fix out, everything. So
it's valuable, like because you can go back. Like it's all good in pricing a job and thinking that you've worked things out correctly, but to actually, like we generally give it like 6-8 weeks, sometimes a little bit longer after the job, get those last few sort of invoices that sort of come in, and then have a look back through your quoted, like your actuals versus your quoted, and just review them and see where you were at. And I think you touched on it there with your carpenters. Like carpenters are a huge one for me.
Labour's the one that always goes over. Like, always.
Yeah, but back in the day, like it really frustrated me because, like I would be pricing things as if I was doing it myself on site, and the job, like to be honest, a lot of the jobs I did back when I was on the tools all the time have changed from the jobs we're doing now, and like especially when you get in around city and that, and the size of the blocks, and until we got our guys to start tracking it more and more, I just got blown away by how much labour is taken up. And this is a good one for the homeowners as well, because it's something that they don't get value for, but like moving materials around a site, unloading and loading trucks, helping other trades out, moving their gear around the site, cleaning up.
Cleaning, that's probably the biggest one.
It's like on a, I don't know, so I'd like to know what you in your business, but like on a $500,000 job, say, like it's not hard to have 10 or 15 grand just for those sort of incidental things.
Yeah, I think, and the thing is, you've got to also try to be competitive on your quotes. So allowing that 15 grand buffer could be the reason that you don't get a job. So I think a lot of guys sort of go real light on their quoting
Yeah.
in terms of those things, but don't allow for it because they're not tracking the data, so they don't know what their other projects sat at.
Yeah. Well, and look, that's it. That's definitely another thing to touch on, because most or a lot of builders are in that mindset that if they do like, and this is where it does get a bit tricky. Like when you do start tracking data,
Yep.
and you do start seeing the real numbers, and you start pricing your jobs more accurately, you do end up in that position where you're like, I'm tendering jobs and I'm not winning jobs now. Like if I put this up to what it actually needs to be,
Yeah, it's a scary
I'm not going to
part.
get any work. And look, I call bullshit on that now. Like you need to sell yourself, and I think too many of us get stuck competing on price,
Yep.
instead of actually selling what we're offering, like selling our passion, our knowledge, our experience, our quality,
Yes.
our team, what we're going to deliver the client. And I think when you change your mindset, you actually start attracting clients that, look, at the end of the day, everyone only has a certain amount of money to spend, and it is about, I call it project spend.
Yep.
But you will start attracting clients that are more like-minded to you, and not the ones that are just going to keep screwing you for every cent. And then you're the one that's on site stressed out, anxiety, like can't get the job done, trying to cut corners, substitute materials. Like it just ends up in this horrible roller coaster.
Yeah, there's a lot of, obviously, like we charge for quotes, and I know you do, and quite a few other guys do, and I think that starts to weed out those sort of clients that are chasing bottom dollar.
Yeah.
And
we
not
do
chasing
we
value.
do the pack process. So
Yeah.
a little
So,
bit different at charging for a quote.
Yeah, or charging for a proposal, but yeah, getting involved at the beginning
Yeah.
process is what we're selling. In terms of, you should be hiring your designer and your builder at the same time, and them
Yeah.
working together.
Yeah.
But those sort of those sort of things where trying to sell your value
Yeah.
more than your price, because you'll go broke either way. So if you underprice the job, you're going to go broke.
Yeah.
Or you can miss the job and still go broke, but at least you're happy because you're not under stress because you've underquoted a job.
Yeah. I think the most important part about that collaboration in the early days is you're building a relationship.
Yes.
And like it is, like we just touched on, you do get in that mindset when you start getting better at knowing your costs, and you're hesitant because I was actually reading something. I'm listening to a new Audible book at the moment about knowing your why, and they used a example in the book about retail, and I just thought it relates to our industry so much. And it was basically along the lines of, and the way I would turn it around to builders is, your business starts growing, and so generally it'll start off as you're a tradie, or you got your builder's license, and you might do a few cashies or the odd weekend jobs for family and friends or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it eventually gets to a point where you've got enough work that you pull the pin with your job and you go out on your own, and then you end up with a team member and another team member and an office staff, and so you keep growing and growing, and generally you're only still charging the hourly rate that you were getting back when you started doing the cashies. And so you become stuck on this ball that's rolling fast, and you keep getting more jobs here, there. The jobs keep getting bigger. Your overheads keep getting bigger, but you don't understand what they're costing you, so you're not even
Your
thinking about
markup's
it.
still the same.
And then you get to a point where this is like, I did it, I laugh about it now because I can't believe I did, but you then start getting involved in tendering scenarios, and you need the job because you've grown your team.
Yep.
You get to a point where you're like, holy shit, these jobs are nearly finished. Where's my next job coming from? And so you buy the next job, and so you might get told, oh look, you're 20 grand dear. So you just make a call like that. Oh look, I'll drop it 20 grand.
Yes.
And get the job. And so you then become addicted to that, and that's the cycle. And the way that they talked about it in this book is, like, if that was a drug addict that become addicted to something, you would be called an addict.
Yep.
And builders become addicted to dropping their price.
Yeah, it's the
because
mindset. They undervalue themselves.
they undervalue themselves, and they stuck in that roller coaster ride. So they need the job because they've got no cash flow. Like you said before, you get down to your last $100,
Yeah.
and you think the answer is dropping 10 grand on a job to get the next contract.
But you're just prolonging it. You're doing the exact same thing over and
not,
over.
Not knowing that you've probably underquoted that job anyway, and you've just dug your hole another 2 foot deeper in trouble. So
That's it. Like, I think it also comes with confidence, I guess, that if someone like everyone always asks, oh, what's your markup?
yeah,
And my response is, well, what do you earn a year? And then that sort
Yeah.
of, they're like, oh, well, that's rude. And I'm like, well, you just asked me what we put our markup at. Like,
it is.
It's the same situation.
It's exactly the same. And the problem is, mate, with our industry and for clients, like, I think most homeowners want builders to be running a good business because then that way they know the job's going to get finished. But they don't know any better because, like, look at our contracts. Like, most of our contracts have, if nothing stated, 10%. And like I'm telling you right now, if there's any building businesses out there that are running at 10%, you'll be going broke.
Yeah,
Like,
straight away.
That is the reason you have no cash flow.
That 10% will get chewed up in the price increases at the moment.
Yeah.
So you're operating at a loss straight away on a job.
Yeah, well, look, the average custom family-run business takes 14 to 18% just to cover their overheads.
Yep.
And when you think about that, most guys are only putting 10 or 15% on total, including profit. You can see why the industry is in such a bad way, and people are chasing their tail, and people are cutting each other. But I think it's a funny one because when you there's nothing else. Like, I don't know any other industry where people would question what you're making.
Exactly.
Like, you would never walk into a doctor's surgery or a dentist or like anything. A school teacher, you would never walk in anywhere else and say, "What are you making?" Or would you?
No, that's the thing. Like, I think where the industry is, like, we bend over for the client and we always try to help them and everything like that, but at the detriment of our own business. So, and the thing is, if you're young to the game and you don't know that this is how much you're losing, you'll cop that.
Yeah.
So you'll drop your margin, which is the first thing to go.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, hang on, you should be questioning, why is that guy cheaper by 20 grand?
Yeah.
I guarantee it's because they haven't quoted on the same thing.
Yeah.
Which,
or they haven't, like, I talk about this a lot. I look back now and, like, even back when I was running a shit show, I was still getting told I was too dear.
yeah.
And when I look back now and think, I was going broke and I was still getting told I was too expensive. So what's
the
these
other guy
other guys
operating at?
doing?
Well, we lost a job at last year and the guy was 200K less than us. And I was like, well, what's that 200K? Because that was more than our markup.
Yeah.
So I'm like, he's operating at a loss. Like, what's the point? And it was a big job. Like, it was multi-townhouses. And I was just like, the stress isn't worth it.
Yeah, it's a hard game, and I think it's again, it's why we're doing this podcast, Level Up, to help educate people. But I do think that margin markup one is a real funny conversation because, like, I think it's driven by the dollar value of projects. Like, it's like, you think about anything retail, anything at all, food, clothing, even like appliances and things. Like, they have like 60, 80, 100, 200%, 300%.
Oh, it's crazy if people actually knew how much things were.
And then even I know like I did a lot of contracting. Like, even when you're a contractor, or like a lot of our subbies, sparkies, electricians, all those types of guys.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of them are running at the 20, 30, 40%. And yet the builder is the only one that gets questioned.
And it's crazy because we're the one that carries all the danger, and when they're the only one with the license that can do it.
Yeah, but all the liability, all the risk, all well, in Queensland here, it's like 6 years, 3 months. Like, we've got to do all that. And like, this is one thing that really pissed me off a few years ago. Like, they tried changing the rules with the licensing, and they were going to start holding contractors liable for if they had mistakes and things. And they tried it. I think they tried it for 12 months, might have been 18 months, 2 years.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get any, like, it didn't work. None of them come back. So then they just put it back on us because it's easier for them to chase us than it is to chase contractors.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you think about any steel that goes up. If a weld fails, it's on
Yeah.
the builder, not the person, not the steel guy that's done the welding.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah. Anything, mate. Like a, uh, a
nothing
painter.
against the welders out there or anything like that.
No, no, no,
But
no, no. Well, nothing against any trades,
yeah,
but
but
like I think I definitely appreciate all the work that contractors do. Sparkies, plumbers, plasterers, like they do have a hard game just like us. But I think the thing is that a lot of people look at us as just a higher level of tradie. Like when you think, like all of our associations and governing bodies, we're licensed under the same standards as what our contractors are, our tradies
yeah,
are. So why would clients look at us any differently when we're licensed the same? Like, and look, that again, that's another huge part of Live Life Build. Like our goal is to separate the builders. Like we don't want builders being involved or licensed under the same sort of associations and bodies as our tradies. Like builders, we take all the risks, we take all the liability. So we need to be separated, I believe.
this is probably a bit controversial, but I think it should be harder to get a builder's license
Oh, 100%.
because, like, where I'm lucky because there's two of us. So Jeremy's on site and then I'm in the office. But then if there's a solo operator and that's just him and then he's having to do all the admin, things are going to get missed. So the thing is with the builder's license, and a lot of, like, they don't really go in, they do a module on
A little bit, yeah.
on admin, but not much. But most of the things like figuring out your cash flow, figuring out, like, a lot of builders would be operating from stage payment to stage payment and not even realize it.
Yeah.
So
Oh, definitely, definitely.
the fact that there should be more of an admin role
Yeah.
part of that building license.
Yeah. Look, to be honest, back in the day, if it had been harder to get my builds license, I probably wouldn't have got it.
Yeah.
Because, but that's not knowing what I know now.
Yeah.
And knowing what I know now, I definitely believe there's got to be more done. Like it is far too easy to get your license. And as we touched on before, like you get your license and literally straight away or within months, you can be dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars. And even like, just as an example, like even if you are putting 10% on and say you get a $500,000 job and you think in your mind, like I've got 50 grand there, that's mine.
Yeah, I'm killing it.
But yeah, you're killing it. So you go and buy your new Ranger and your motorbike and your jet ski and all this sort of shit.
Yep.
And not realizing that you're now a business. You have insurances and work cover and admin fees and fuel and phone and insurances. Like you've got all this shit.
Yep.
And that's probably just chewed up 45 of your 50.
Yeah, and the guys, a lot of, like, we're obviously having trade accounts. Some guys have 30 and 60-day accounts. Like that
Yeah.
prolongs it. So you might get multiple payments and you're like, oh, yeah, awesome. But you haven't thought about that there's 100K coming to you in a month's time that you need to pay, and they're sitting there with 110.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, sweet. But
so, mate, how do you like this does fascinate me with like that you're the admin, the design side of it, and then you've got a business partner. Like,
Yep.
Obviously, I've got business partners now in some other businesses, but like back in the day, I originally started my contracting business with another guy, and it didn't last very long.
Yep.
And I know it's on a lot of people's mind because it can work really, really well, or it can go pear-shaped quickly. So, like, what made you make that decision? And I guess what benefits do you see your company having because there's two of you?
I think it's because we've sort of got set, like, lanes. So I'm looking after certain things and he's looking after other things, and the construction. So we sort of, when we sat down, we're like, who's going to do what, and designate a task.
So you've both got set roles and responsibilities.
Yeah, but then we have, like, adjoining tasks. So once a week we'll sit down and do, like, a directors meeting where we go over things that we need to do.
Yeah.
I think a lot of trust goes into it, but I think it's also communication in terms of, like, we'll rip into each other every now and then if we're not happy about something, but then 2 minutes later you could be laughing about it. It's not being personal. It's like, it's a business. And
so would you, like, what advice would you give for people that might be thinking about starting a business and having a partner?
Well, funny thing is I've actually had another business that had nothing to do with building that ran alongside it, and it didn't go well just because we butted heads as business partners, and I think it's just due to poor communication.
Yeah.
So I think if you're going into business for somebody else, you've just got to, I think it's about communication and leaving your egos at the door. Like
Yeah.
things aren't, like unless they're having a personal dig at you, most
Yeah.
things are not personal. It's just like
Yeah.
having a chat about and being honest. Like, well, we have some pretty serious conversations sometimes. Like at the
Yeah.
beginning of the year, we had a meeting and just said, hey, what did we do good last year and what did we do bad? And just go hard on
Yeah.
that and just be straight up. Like we underquoted certain things and
Yeah.
we dropped the ball on certain marketing or getting back to clients quicker and just be honest and open and like just talk about it.
So again, that's coming back to doing your reviews.
Yes.
Like you've got to have a successful business, you've got to be communicating and reviewing everything, don't you? Like don't just keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to review what you've just done so that you can move forward and
Well,
be bigger and better.
Like if you don't review anything, then it's more, pros and cons. Like I do the same thing when we go forward with certain things, pros and cons, make a list and review it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And the fact that you like you're consciously thinking about, even like you mentioned there, like where did you drop your ball with clients and things, like because that's just going to help your process moving forward. And like at the end of the day, we don't have businesses without clients. So
100%.
how we communicate with clients is a huge part of how successful our business is going to be.
People forget that we're a sales business and a service business. That's what we need to focus on is the client. Like they're the one, it's their house, it's not yours.
Yeah.
Unless it's obviously you're building for yourself, but you're building their house that they're going to live in.
Yeah.
It should be a joyful process and an
it's a
exciting
big
process.
investment, eh? Like,
it's
I really like. I love my job. I love what I do. I'm incredibly passionate about everything about it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, for me, like for me, it doesn't matter if the client's spending 50 grand or 5 million. Like to that person, it's a lot of money. They've saved it. They've
been dreaming about it. They've probably got Pinterest pages on it. They've got screenshots in their phone that they've thought about the house, and that's all they've dreamed about.
And then they're entrusting you to build. Like I love it, mate. There's nothing better than a successful project and seeing the owner in tears on the handover day, just thrilled that their new home's finished and their dreams, like their expectations are met. It's been a good process.
So one of our clients, that we finished their house a few years ago, he still invites us to a Christmas party at their house. So like, to me,
it's awesome.
Yeah, that's like the best thing you can actually receive from a client is just the callback and hey, this is awesome and we're loving this and
it's the ultimate compliment, isn't it? Like,
100%. Like,
because a lot of builders out there. And again, I definitely dropped the ball with this back in the day, but it's not just about the handover day. I've heard lots of stories and I've seen it happen a lot where builders they might not be running a good business, but they do manage their clients well through the process and they hand it over and everything's fantastic. But because they haven't had good cash flow, because they never made money on the job, they've got a sour taste for the job.
Yep.
And then some small little defect that the client points out or rings up about gets ignored or they never get back to them. And then all of a sudden that relationship you built is gone. And the only thing that the client's ever going to remember and the only thing the client's going to tell their friend is, this guy won't come back. Like we can't get a hold of him. He won't come back. And it might be some painting touch-ups or something, but because you made no money on the job,
you've just thrown in the towel. You've
ruined your opportunity to, instead of doing a review at the end of a job and going, oh shit, like you just pointed out, like, oh, we didn't do real well here, we lost a bit on here, like let's improve this on the next one. They just lose that opportunity to let that client promote their business.
Yeah, well, we're moving towards sending an email to the client halfway through the job, like at different stages, to review us and be honest. So like at first we were a bit hesitant and I was like, well, you could have a crap client, but why is that a crap client? It's probably because we've been managing it wrong.
Yeah.
So then they review it and then we can fix that.
Yeah.
I'd say like 90% of our clients have been unreal. And then 10%, obviously you're going to have some bad ones. 5% of that 10 is probably like, they're probably just shit people. But then you get that other 5% that it's because of our own fault where we haven't managed their expectations or we've missed something that was important to them that was a big factor and we've sort of missed it.
Yeah.
And it was our own fault.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. But I don't think there's any shit clients out there. Like I do. And
You've
look,
had some great clients though.
mate, no, look, I've definitely had some doozies in my
Yeah.
day, but when I look back now, it was all me.
Yeah.
Like we had some like lovely people that by the end of the job, just we were definitely butting heads, and final payment wouldn't get made, and like there's lots of arguments. And when I look back now, it was all me.
Yeah.
Like we didn't have an inquiry system that attracted like-minded clients. We didn't have we didn't understand our contracts. We didn't manage their expectations. We didn't price things correctly. So like I said, we had a sour taste in our mouth from the job.
Yeah.
We didn't have systems and processes. We didn't manage handover properly. We didn't manage defects properly. And so definitely a big advocate now. Like I know just in life in general, there is people out there that I don't get on with.
Yep.
But by the systems and processes we put in place in our business, we now attract like-minded people.
Well, that's 100%. So we had we had one that was really bad, but they basically just wanted things for free.
Yeah.
And that was probably the only client that we've had that really bad experience with.
And you just hit it on the head, mate. And that I think that's most builders that say they have shit clients.
Yeah.
Is for that reason, because they've let themselves get in a situation where the client or the architect designer's told them what they're going to do it for.
Yeah.
And it's a disaster.
Yeah. Or like, yes, this one instance, they left something off the drawings, which it happens, like not all drawings are perfect, but they want it for free. And we were just like, well, we can do it, but it's going to cost you this. And they're like, well, no, it should have happened. And we're like, yeah, it should have happened, but it wasn't. So this is how we'll fix it.
Yeah.
But like straight out.
Pack process, mate.
Yeah. Well, that's
Getting
why
involved in
since then, that's what we got burnt. So we were just like, okay, what are we going to do to fix it? So we had to put these processes in place where you track those great clients. And since then we've just had unreal clients, like people that have owned their own business. So they actually value
your time.
Yeah. And they realize how much things cost, and that you've got to have an overhead, and you've got to make profit, because you don't want a builder going bankrupt halfway through your job.
Yeah,
so,
no, definitely. It is definitely a hard game, but
I think building is probably the hardest industry in terms of making money, because not only you're dealing with large amounts of money, and you're dealing with a lot of emotion from everybody.
Yeah.
And people get funny about money straight away. As soon as everyone's great, and then you got to send them an invoice for 200K, and they're like, oh, right, okay, then we're going to pay this. But you're dealing with labor prices, and you're dealing with material prices constantly changing. I don't know, like most other businesses, I guess, have the same similar things, but maybe not on a larger scale that we're on.
Mate, I'm the same. I believe you. I don't like every day, like when we price a job, we're pricing it on that point in time.
Yes.
And yet, like the other big part of our game is it's like your job can take 6, 12, 18 months.
Yep.
And in that 6, 12, 18 months, like you said, labor can go up, cost of materials can go up,
Subbies
cost
go
of transport go up.
Yeah.
And yet you've signed a fixed price with a contract. Like I know, like definitely in the current market, like there's been so many articles and that in the media that like there is builders out there that are literally losing 10, 20, 30 grand every single job they're doing. And like, surely that this year, that's got to catch up with the industry. Like builders can't keep wearing those costs for an extended period of time.
That's it. It'll collapse. Like there'll be a shortage of everybody.
Yeah.
And then the prices go up even further, because no one can operate, or they can't charge what they want to.
Yeah.
And then obviously fixed, like cost plus contracts are pretty frowned upon, but our way of sort of negotiating that is like, well, okay, we can allow for a price for when we purchase the materials 6-8 months down the track, and put a big margin on it, or a buffer, so that we're covered. Or we can just go, hey, let's PS that item or PC it, and then let's pay the real figure, and then you guys don't lose out and we don't lose out. And it just doesn't. I think most clients have been pretty good about that so far.
No, definitely. And again, whatever contract you choose to use, it's about educating your client on how that contract works.
And you knowing your own contracts.
Yeah.
Like I probably only started reviewing our contracts like in detail in terms of like all the terms and conditions, everything like that, about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So
Isn't it,
before that, we were just signing them.
it's a pretty powerful moment when you read your contract because, I believe your contract is a rule book for the job.
Yeah.
And yet so many builders don't read it and don't even know what's in there. And yet when you do read it, like, you're actually fine. Like, if you follow like, you can turn it into a system. Like, for a variation example, like, it tells you in the contract, like, for what reason you need to send it within, how many days it got to be responded to, like how many days before this and that you've got to
Yeah.
send
How many
it. Like,
days does it delay the project and
yeah, like,
everything
it's
on
actually
top of it?
outlined for you. And if you actually spend the time to read it, and then, like I said, that's your rule book for the job.
And people skim over contracts because it's not the glamorous part.
Yeah.
So everyone's focused on the design
Yeah.
and the build, but they miss all the stuff in between.
And generally like, I keep banging on about, we do the pack process, but like, we're really big on, like, we're mentioning contract information right through the design stage,
Yep.
like using examples of what might come up or what will happen if this happens. And so generally by the time we get to, and we, I'm not sure if you do, like, we actually have a contract signing meeting. So even
Yep.
though the documents can be signed electronically, I still believe that it can generally take 2 or 3 hours of my time by the time you drive there and you have the meeting and stuff. Or that might only just be the meeting, but that 2 or 3 hours, by the time you leave that meeting, everybody's on the same page. They know what's going to happen if there's a variation, if there's a time delay, liquidated damages. Like, you explain to them what happens with cost adjustments to prime cost, divisional sums, and it's all been discussed. It's all out in the open. And one thing that we really, I guess not push, but educate our clients on is our contract is a rule book.
Yep.
And we will follow it. Like, so when you see a contractual form come through, like, don't get worked up or whatever. Like, it's just a formality.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, we're a business, and the contract is the biggest part of our business. And I think when you have those sorts of conversations with your clients, you're setting your expectation from the beginning of the job. So then the rest of the job's really easy.
See, that's the thing as well. It's like, yeah, confidence and communication. It's just not worrying about, like, people dance around the contract and they're like, oh, the client's going to be a bit funny about this. And
Yeah.
like, we charge a variation fee,
Yeah.
and a lot of guys don't.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, just tell the client straight up because
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z, because we've got to price this, and you're
Yeah.
changing all the documentation that we've gone through and everything like that. And most time, 9 out of 10 times, they're on board.
Yeah. But
it's
again, you're educating on that before
Correct.
you go into it. We do the same. We call it a administration fee.
Yeah.
So any variation at all attracts an administration fee, and like you said, that's purely there because it covers our time. Like, if it's a variation, we've got to price it, organise it, pick materials up. Like,
Yep.
there's a lot.
And it might hold something up. So
yeah, there might be a time extension. So
but it's just about communicating that to the client and not being afraid to.
yeah.
Like,
Well, I know a lot of the bigger volume builders. Like, we've had some family build with them, and like, they'll have a variation fee as high as 2,400, 2,600, like
they won't
$2,600.
miss you. Like,
But the reason they do that is because they don't want you to do a variation. Like, they have a
Yeah.
model, and that is what they want
they've
to
got their
stick to.
processes and they don't want
Yeah.
you to variate from that. So
Yeah.
they just like stick to the
Yeah.
road
Yeah.
and don't deviate.
I heard one story. I won't mention the company name, but their variation cost was $2,200 plus GST, and the client wanted 2 extra downlights.
Oh,
And so the 2 extra downlights ended up costing them about $2,800.
geez, I'd want to pick some good downlights.
But I guess that just goes to show you, like, that they had a process,
Yes.
and the client wanted to break that process. They wanted to add something that had already been organised and done. So the
But
client,
they knew it cost them money. So
yeah,
that's the whole point of they know their overheads. They know exactly how much things are going to cost them.
yeah,
So they put these processes in place that stop these things.
yeah, yeah,
And which is like a lot of guys aren't doing.
yeah,
And we weren't for a long time either.
yeah. So, mate, I guess we've talked a lot about the business side of things.
Yep.
Like, what's your passion? Like, is it design? Is it building? Is it seeing the finished project? Like,
I think it's a finished project. And more of the passion is, I think, just giving a great family home to someone, or a home that someone can be proud of and say, oh, this was built by Bluebird. And I'm like, that's probably like the greatest compliment we can ever get. I'm big in both fields, I think. Obviously, I'm not on site. I'd love to, but I'd probably be a bit dangerous and shoot myself in the leg or something like that. And then I think like I love doing design as well, but I think it's just the end product. I think more the clients, like excitement and going through that. Like we do it every day, so for me it's just like a job, but for them it's their home, and like going and picking out appliances and those sort of things, like that's pretty fun. And
it's like I look, again, I think building is an incredible, when you get on top of things and you're running a good show, like it is just such a rewarding business. Like the fact that we're giving the opportunity to build people's dreams, we're building the biggest expense that they'll ever have. Like not too many people would have a hobby or a car or a boat that's worth more than their house. Like we're
it's the biggest investment you'll ever have.
Like they're entrusting us with that. Like I think it's so powerful. But sorry, just back a bit, like with you and your partner, because it doesn't matter. Like business partners, I'm always interested in how they work. So if you're doing all the administration side and dealing with design and all pricing and all that sort of stuff, so during that point you're dealing with the client. And then when the job starts, your business partner
takes on.
Do you go to site and have client meetings? Or?
Yeah, it depends on the meetings. I'll look at probably a lot of the major ones. So like obviously the start of the project. Like if we demo the house, then we normally get them on site and go through that. But we have fortnightly meetings, and then Jeremy will take on those sort of things. But I'll be there for like slab, then frame, rough in. So things that affect the design.
So do you ever get situations where a client will sort of play you off or try and get something done on site and say, hey?
No, I think he's probably more ruthless than I am. But no, we haven't tried that. No one's tried that yet. Like we speak a ridiculous amount of time, like 10 times a day at least. And then if he's not in the office, but then obviously if he's in the office, we're talking. And then obviously we've got like WhatsApp, and there's a group chat and things back and forth. But no, in terms of like who's doing what, I think we've got that down pat.
All sorted.
Yeah.
There's a lot of handy apps in there. Like you use
it's
WhatsApp.
Crazy now.
Like we use Slack for a lot of our stuff.
But,
so mate, for the clients out there that are watching and learning more, like what's 3 tips that you would give someone that's out there and thinking about building a home or a renovation?
Probably get your building and your designer or architect engaged at the same time so that they work together. Review all your contracts and your documentation correctly. Like there's so many times where we've built something and the client's like, oh, I didn't know that was going in. And don't be afraid to ask questions. I think a lot of homeowners get scared to ask a question and they think, oh, the builder's going to think I'm stupid, or is this a stupid question? There's no stupid questions. It's your house. You're paying us. So ask the question. If you don't know it, if you don't ask that question, normally it'll snowball into something that just gets bigger and bigger and eats away at them. So just talk about it straight away, hit the nail on the head, and get
that's
it resolved.
Awesome, mate. I think that's such an important point that we do the same thing. No question's a silly question. Like because for a lot of clients, like obviously the industry has so many horror stories. So for a lot of clients, it's having that trust in you that you don't think they're silly, or you welcome them to ask questions and get involved. Like you said, at the end of the day, it's their money, it's their home.
Yeah, and we work in the industry every day. So for us, it's just a job. But for them, it's like if we went into their industry, there's a good chance we wouldn't have a clue like half their stuff. So it's a two-way street.
And then, so let's move on to the builders. So for any builders or maybe tradies out there that are possibly having a little bit of trouble in their business at the moment, might be looking for a little bit of advice, like what's the 3 things that you would give that, like 3 bits of advice you'd give them for working on their business?
First one would probably be get a good accountant or bookkeeper or someone in finance to
know your numbers.
To know your numbers and go through that. Don't be afraid to ask questions in terms of like most people that I know that are actually successful would easily go have a coffee with you. So go ask someone who's more senior, who's been doing it for 20 years and pick their brain.
Yeah,
Don't be afraid to ask a question.
Our industry's bad for that, isn't it? Like, sorry to cut you off. You got one more to go, but I'm really encouraging that. Like, I cannot believe that builders for so long don't talk to each other. And like, I know when I first started, like I quite often would talk to other builders and ask questions, or I'd be having a situation, I'd want to talk to them, and they'd basically just tell me, mate, suck eggs. Like, that's the industry. Deal with it.
I think it's getting better. Like, I know quite a few different builders, and we all have a chat and call each other and ask about certain things.
It's pretty powerful.
But it's great to know that everybody's in the same situation.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of leads me to the third point, basically, is it's just stick to your lane and do your own thing. Like, don't be worried about what everybody else is doing, like what other projects some other builders posted on Instagram or something like that, showboating, or he's got a new car or a new boat. But like, focus on your own business and don't get caught up in their business. Yeah,
everybody's different, eh? Run your own race, take responsibility.
100%. Because you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Like,
mate, that has been absolutely incredible chat. Thanks so much for your time. I think we might even have to do a round 2 at some stage, because I think you've given a lot of value today. And
thanks for that.
Thanks very much for giving us an insight into where you've come from, what you're doing, and how you run your business. It's fantastic.
Too easy. I'd love to come back and bring Jeremy next time, and he can tell you from his side as well.
For sure, mate. The more the better. So, look, guys, if you're liking these podcasts and you got questions, you want to know things, then don't be afraid to sing out. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, whatever you want to do. But we're on a mission to change the building industry. We want builders and tradies to run incredible businesses, and we also want clients to get a great experience when they're building or renovating. So, like, share, subscribe, and look forward to seeing you next time. Everything discussed during the Level Up podcast with me, Duayne Pearce, is based solely on my own personal experiences and those experiences of my guests. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. We recommend that you obtain your own professional advice in respect to the topics discussed during this podcast.